Thank you so much for being a part of Issues at Hand. My name is Carola. Thank you so much, and you are welcome to Good Morning Family, especially from the Good Morning Show with Bruno and Daphne. I hope that you learned a thing or two and got up to speed with what is happening in and around the country. I'm here to continue with that conversation, but especially with an interview that, of course, is bringing us up to speed to what exactly is happening in our country in some areas. Yesterday, we looked at some of the things that are affecting our country, especially those LC1 and LC2 leadership votes or elections that are still taking their time because of the fact that the funds to carry them out are still lacking. Of course, we saw another story where General Museveni wrote to Justice Minister and DP President Norbert Mao asking for the unity that is within the party and the NRM ruling party to strengthen. And of course, we saw General Museveni calling upon other members of the party, other parties in general, to come to table with him or with the NRM government and make sure that they do come up with a way on how to counter or on how to build unity in our country. And I think that is the best way on how to go about the issues that are affecting us as a country. One of the issues affecting us as a country is, of course, the human trafficking that has been lingering around our country for a while now. And we want to see how are we doing, what are we doing about the cases that are increasing by the day? How are we doing in the previous cases? Have we been able to handle some of the challenges that come with human trafficking? And that is why I want to start with my guest today, who is going to be telling us more about human trafficking. His name is Mr. Kigenyi, and he is from the Immigrations Department of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Am I right?
Yes, I'll add on.
Okay.
Thank you, Caro. Good morning, our viewers. My name is Senior Immigration Officer Basalirwa Derrick, the Deputy National Coordinator for Prevention of Trafficking in Persons for Uganda.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are so glad to be with you this morning, and we want to discuss something that is very, very pertinent and close to our hearts. That's human trafficking. It has been lingering around for some time. I don't know what you have to say about the fact that some people still don't know what human trafficking is. Could you please start by explaining what human trafficking is?
Thank you, Caro. First of all, I'd like to let our viewers know, the country know, that we, on 19th July, launched our report, this that I've shared with you. Can I just, this, the National Report on Counter-Trafficking in Persons for the year 2022. This we launched, and in this report, it has a lot that has been done in the previous year and also in the years before, because all these efforts just keep flowing over into the next year. However, to our viewers, human trafficking takes 3 stages. I really want to break it in the simplest way possible. It involves actions, it involves means, it also involves a purpose. For our viewers, the actions speaking to human trafficking are those things that someone does to make sure they lure you, the individual, to the end game, which is exploitation. That is the purpose. So, among the actions someone may take is to defraud you. They will deceive you about, we've had many of our parents being lied to about sponsorships for children in schools. So many, even university students have fallen victim to these scams. They have picked on sponsorship scams online, because it's happening everywhere. Online, name it. Some of the people are coerced among the actions that are done. Some people are even kidnapped for your information. Kidnapped and driven to different places and exploited in so many different ways. So, among the actions include those. And these actions lead to what I talked about, the second portion being the means. In the means, we speak to what someone does. Okay? The way someone is going to make sure they will take you from one place to another. By what means? Okay? They will transport you. They will take you in different ways. A little bit of the means, people also are forced by their own relatives.
Oh.
Yes, people are forced by their own relatives. Even some of the adverts that are run are deceitful adverts. Okay? So, by transporting someone, by harboring someone, by receiving someone, those actions lead to human trafficking. For instance, some of our people go ahead and use housemaids. Yes, which is a good thing. They need the work. But do our housemaids, do you know where they come from? That is something to look into. Many of our people don't even know where their housemaids come from. But all they do is send the money and the housemaid is sent to you. You only know about the end, but you don't know by what means, by what actions this person got here. Okay? So it's usually a mixture of three things: the actions, transportation, harboring, receiving, and also transferring the individual by the means of deceit, fraud, coercion, name it, and for the purpose, which is ultimately exploitation.
Yes.
So, in the exploitation, you'll find child labor exploitation, you'll find sexual exploitation, you'll find all forms of exploitation, including human sacrifice for purposes of gains.
In Uganda, is it still happening?
Yes, it happens. It happens. That's why we have a law against human sacrifice. So, all these, anyone will do anything to make sure they get to you and exploit you in so many different ways. Yes, Carol.
Thank you so much. I'm holding the report, the 2022-2023 report that was released on Wednesday by Permanent Secretary of Immigrations, and I would like to...
Of Internal Affairs.
Internal Affairs, sorry. And
Yes.
I'd like to read some of the reports, part of what it says. And it says in 2022 there was an increase, a 185% increase in the cases of trafficking in persons reported to police from 420 cases in 2021 to 1,200 cases in 2022. Now the increase is what's bothering me. And when you look at the graph, like I'm looking at now, from 2016 we had 125 people, then we went to 2017 there were 177, we came to 2018 there were 286, and then in 2019 they became 252. Now they decreased a bit. Then we're seeing a rise again in 2020 and 2021, where in 2021 we had 451 cases, and now last year in 2022 we had 1,200 cases. And I'd like to ask, what exactly is causing the increase this year? Because in 2022,
Yes.
because it is the highest number of cases we've had. Why
Yes.
is that?
Right from our graph, right from 2016, a number of measures have been taken. A number of efforts have been taken to create awareness. This is a gradual thing, and it has been occurring and adding on every year. So, because of the levels of awareness raising that have been taken over the years and are still ongoing, so many people are now aware. I wouldn't say it's the largest of the population, but at least quite a number now is aware of what we mean by human trafficking. And secondly, they are now aware that this is what I can do about it, especially reporting these cases to police, the nearest police station. So all these cases, the 1,200 cases, were cases reported to Uganda police in the different parts of the country. And this continues to inform us that the more we create awareness, the more we shall curb the vice. So from the previous year, a lot of awareness raising was also done from the previous years, and this has helped with raising the number of cases. It may not necessarily speak to the vice increasing, but due to the awareness, you find that more people now come out and speak about it and report the cases. Okay? So this is basically one of the major reasons.
Okay.
Yes, Carol.
Thank you so much. The report is generated from the data compiled, coordinated and monitored by the Coordination Office of Prevention of Trafficking in Persons at the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Why this office, and does this office have the capacity to carry out the statistics, to make sure they have the right statistics of human trafficking?
Yes, Carol. I think that's where I should have even started. The National Coordination Office for Prevention of Trafficking in Persons, where I am as a deputy, has a mandate. It's a creation of Section 21 of the Prevention of Trafficking in Persons Act of 2009. The office was created in the efforts to counter human trafficking, but its major mandate is to coordinate all stakeholders in the country to monitor and ensure implementation of the Prevention of Trafficking in Persons Act. So that is the major mandate of the office. It coordinates. There are quite a number of stakeholders who are doing this, including CSOs, non-government organizations, and other international partners. So it's not just government that is fighting, but we are doing this together. The major role for our office is to coordinate all activities that are ongoing and put them together. So this report actually, our report, speaks to all stakeholders. If you look at the back page, you will see all the stakeholders that are part of this, these efforts or measures to counter human trafficking. So from the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the COPTIP office, our major vision is to see a Uganda free from all forms of human trafficking. And that is basically what we work around. Yes, Carol.
I'm hoping that we get to achieve that in the near future, but I'd like to go back to awareness. How did you carry out awareness and sensitization to the people, and how far did you reach? Because Uganda is kind of a big country with very many districts. How were you able to carry out awareness campaigns and do sensitization?
Like I said, if you would like to just open the back page, you will see some of the stakeholders.
Okay.
I hope that's
this
the page. No, open the other. All the efforts, the awareness that has been raised is not just by government alone. Every awareness raised counts, whether it is by you, the individual, whether it is by airing it here on TV, even if it's a spot message. But there are always people behind all this. There are people who are funding these spot messages. There are people who are practically coming to radio stations. We are always on radio stations. I've been here before, you remember? And on other media houses. We spread the message. We send out the message to all people of any category, in schools, in institutions, and very soon on 30th July, it's one of the things we shall talk about later. We are going to celebrate the UN designated day, a World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. It's also another form of awareness raising. And above all, government of Uganda has come out to prioritize efforts towards preventing human trafficking by funding, first of all, the cooperative office, by funding all necessary efforts available, training of officers. We have trained immigration officers across the board. We have trained police officers, especially because they're actually the majority. They have been trained not only by the cooperative office or the coordination office, but by also other stakeholders like the International Organization for Migration, GIZ, UNODC. All these partners have played a role, and they have gone ahead to train all staff to build capacity.
Thank you.
So, within all this, awareness raising has been done in all different parts of the country. But also, we are conducting a pilot with IOM to decentralize services of the National Task Force. We have a National Task Force. In so doing, the pilot is intended to create what we call district task forces for prevention of trafficking in persons. These task forces will be led by the district administration. So this is, I believe, one of the major steps that we are going to take to achieve more awareness raising, because you know very well our district leaders are always on the ground. They are always interacting with the majority of the population. So once we do this, we shall have a plus.
So people in rural areas are covered?
In rural areas. They have been always attended to, but this will improve our coverage of the rural areas also.
Okay, so let's look at the role of police and in human trafficking. How do you connect to police? What do you expect of them, and how have they helped you?
I should speak into this in relation to the coordination office. The coordination office is made up of, there is staff from Uganda Police, the commissioner himself, Afande Chinom Juni Julius is the coordinator, national coordinator, is the one I deputize. So you see, it's a combination of agencies, Uganda Police, immigration, in the same office, and we work together with so many other agencies. But police in general plays a very big role. Remember, for any case, it has to start by reporting. And from reporting, then the case file will be generated, sent to the Office of Director Public Prosecutions, or you may call it Resident State Attorney, given the jurisdiction where you are. And that's when prosecution will also start for any offenders. So Uganda Police's role is very key. We need those investigators at the CID headquarters. There is a unit for human trafficking, a department for human trafficking specifically. And of course it's led by the police officers there. And their role has always been to help with the investigations of cases that are under prosecution. When you look at our report, we secured one of the highest numbers of prosecutions, not just even in the region, by the way. On the continent, it's one of the highest. 79 cases that were prosecuted by the Office of Director Public Prosecutions in the year 2022. Cases against human trafficking. That is a plus for the entire team, all the stakeholders and the coordination office. So, but all these cases secured was not a one-man show. The police played the role. Prosecutors from ODPP played their role and ensured that perpetrators are put to book. Yes.
Thank you. Maybe let's look at the difference between child trafficking and adult trafficking, and which is more, where are we seeing more cases currently, just before we get to the people abroad and labor.
Okay. From our report of 2022, you realize that majority of the cases were adult trafficking as opposed to child trafficking. In fact, it took up 668 cases of the 1,200 cases reported to police, compared to child trafficking, which had 532 cases. Yes, human trafficking occurs, but when you look at it critically, you realize that for a child, by our law and by all means, they have no consent whatsoever in anything. So they are always lured into these things, forced, coerced, name it, by adults. Whereas an adult might decide, might agree with the perpetrator, might have what you might call consent. For a child, consent doesn't count when you come to court. It doesn't count, because we know very well the children cannot decide on their own. As long as you're below 18, it's a no-go zone. So for children, it's actually what we refer to as aggravated trafficking in persons. It's the worst you can do, because the penalty, you will stay in prison for as long as you live. Okay? Some could even face death, you know. For children, no go zone. It's really, and generally, in fact, generally, human trafficking is not anything that someone should do. Okay? So, child trafficking and adult trafficking, they vary, but if you notice, the cases are on the rise, especially when it comes to children. That's why we've always called upon parents in our awareness raising to ensure that they are in control of their children. They know where they are. They follow up even in schools. They actually literally have a relationship with their children. Okay? Otherwise, we would have ourselves affect the future, especially if the children are affected in this way. Yes, Carol.
I want to ask, maybe, do people traffic children from school? Do people get children from school and
yes,
hijack them?
Carol. In fact, there's a case that is still under investigation in Barara. There's a young man who was in boarding. However, on one of those days when schools send children back home for school fees, he did not reach home. So the parents decide to go to school to just check on their child. Meanwhile, the school knows the child went back home for school fees. Maybe it's taking long. Unfortunately, there was a snag. So child is not at school, neither is he at home. Parents are busy asking, where is our child? We want our child, you know. But on going through the child's suitcase, it was found that he had written some letters indicating that I've left the country, I've gone to work. He wrote a letter to, I think, the sister and the parents that I'll come back and take care of you. Imagine this child even indicated I've gone to China. Can this child go on their own? No. They have been trafficked in one way or the other. And we have always been calling upon parents and schools, school heads, please, even when you're sending these children back home for school fees, let the parents know. Even you, the parent, if you're sending your child back to school, let a teacher at least know. I know they have friends in school.
Yes, they must
let the
have.
teacher know that I've sent so and so back home, back to school. I've already paid the school fees. Please let me know if the child has reached. Otherwise, there is so much that goes on between that transit from home to school, and perpetrators have learned to also take advantage of that. But this also speaks to our urban dwellers who also use school vans, who use our boda riders to take children home and back. I know we have busy schedules, but at least do something extra. if you're using the boda man, make sure you know the nitty-gritty about him, to the extent of having probably a copy of his national ID, knowing where he comes from, where he stays, his family, probably, for your own safety and for the safety of the child. Even for the school vans, it's good to have at least a relationship with the drivers or those caretakers in the vans. Always maybe make a phone call. Have you reached safely with the child at home or at school? It means a lot. Otherwise, as parents and Ugandans, if we just let things be, the perpetrator will take advantage.
But Mr. Kigenyi, is it considered trafficking when somebody agrees and says, yes, I'm going to China, and maybe before we look at, because labor export is one of the issues that we have here in the country, but I'm looking at the issue that the example you've given me
of the missing child.
The missing child. Is it considered trafficking when I agree and say, okay, yes, let's go to China?
Carol, like I said, if it's about the children, please, there is no consent. That's a no-go zone. But even for adults, as long as the three elements meet, that is the action, the means and the purpose, that you intend to exploit this person, and you actually do exploit the person, you have committed the offense. It doesn't matter whether Carol is an adult. Okay? It doesn't matter the age, the gender, name it. As long as prosecution proves that the three elements meet somewhere, there is an offense they are committed. Okay?
Okay.
Yes.
Let's look at general observations from your report and challenges for the year 2022. One of them was lack of shelters for victims of trafficking. Others were lack of skills and knowledge to support victims of trafficking, lack of government commitment, intelligence and gathering sharing, and lack of bilateral agreements and protocols. Lack of shelters for victims for trafficking. So when these victims are rescued, they need shelters, is what you're meaning.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about the challenges.
In fact, one of the major roles has always been shelters. It's very, very major. As government, we do not have government shelters for victims of human trafficking. And it has always posed a challenge because we approach victims, we use a victim-centered approach when we are handling victims. We treat victims as victims. Even when you're found in the process of a crime, but it's discovered that you're actually a victim, you're not supposed to be put in the cells at any police place. No. If you're a victim, you're in a batch of maybe victims, they've arrested some people, you're not supposed to be put in the cells even for custody. You're supposed to be held maybe at a reception center where you need psychosocial support, for instance. You need to be attended to with the different needs. Food, for instance, for many of the women, some of them have their sanitary needs. Not at the police. Otherwise, if you have victims at the police, you're going to torture them psychologically. They might think they are instead, they've committed the offense themselves, yet they are victims of circumstance. So, if we have shelters, that is one of the major strategic efforts. If there are shelters, it will be one of the best positions for us. Because there at the such centers, we shall be able to identify victim needs, shall be able to assess, process the victims, and go ahead and refer them to the different service providers.
Okay.
And it will also help prosecution to easily conduct their investigations, come and talk to the victims and generate more information when victims are in very, very well placed environment.
What's causing the delay in the shelters?
In the shelters.
Is Immigration and Ministry of Internal Affairs requesting government to put up some of these safe houses?
It has always been attached to funding. It has not been sufficient. That's mainly the major reason.
Okay.
And it goes to speak to 4.3 there. It's the same thing.
Lack of government commitment.
It's not necessarily the commitment. Government is so committed to this. But when you look at that, it just speaks to shelters. However, there are CSOs, civil society organizations, that have shelters, that have really supported in this. Yes, they have really supported. Okay? Organizations such as Rahab, Uganda, Willow International, they have housed our victims every now and then when they are called upon. Some of the victims have also been housed in places like Champisi, in Mukono. And that's why we need this coordination. That's why we need all these partners, some of whom can afford to have shelters, okay? And they have always been supportive of government. When you call upon them, they receive the victims. They attend to them up to the point of reintegration into their respective communities.
Okay.
Yes, Carol.
So before we got on air, you were telling me something about our country still being a transit country, an origin country, and a destination country, meaning that the traffickers or victims can come from Uganda, they can be brought into Uganda, and they can be passed through Uganda. Could you throw more light on that one?
Indeed, Carol. Our country still, like you said, is an origin country for victims of trafficking in persons. That's why you see some of our Ugandans who migrate to go and work. Some of them end up as victims. So, as a country, we can originate victims to other places. As a transit, so many come through Uganda, go through maybe Entebbe Airport or other border points to continue to other destinations. And also, so many also come to the country as a destination country to come and work here, to come and stay here, but when they have been trafficked. In our report, we indicate that domestic human trafficking is takes up the highest percentage, about 80%. But within the domestic human trafficking, you realize that we also have transit points. We identified 84 locations where most of the victims of human trafficking come from to the urban centers to Kampala. 84 locations across the country. But the main transit area was identified as Jinja.
Oh.
Yes, because of course there is a bridge there. Anyone coming from the far east or the east will have to cross through to come this way to Kampala and continue to other parts. Or if they go through, let's say, Soroti, to access the other part of the country. And our victims come from any part of the country, from as far as Arua, from as far as Isinjiro, you can imagine, across to Kawarori, Fort Poto. It is not specific that they will come from this place and not here. Anyone can be a victim at any time, including those who have gone to school, like me and you. You can be trafficked online. Perpetrators have invested in this thing. They do everything online. We've seen some of those clips on social media in the Middle East. People buying human beings online. Typically human trafficking.
I'd like to talk about the labor later when we come back from a very short break. But as you have heard it from Mr. Kigenyi, anyone can become a victim of human trafficking, even when you are studied, even when you are not, even when you're beautiful, even when you're not, even when you even when you're lame or you're not. Anybody is a victim, is anybody can become a victim to human trafficking. But we are trying to see, of course, the 2022 report that was released by the Ministry of Internal Affairs. What is it saying? What are they telling us? And exactly what are we supposed to know from them? And we are still with Mr. Kigenyi Basalirwa in studio, and we are discussing some of these issues. But we will be back with issues at hand. We are powered by Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe, comfort and luxury at its best. Comfort and luxury at its best. That is Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. They do have a fully fledged kitchen in case you want to take your family out. They have a swimming pool, they have a gym, and all the other activities that bring comfort and luxury to your place, to your home, and right to your. They have those services for you. My name is Carol. You're welcome back to Issues at Hand. We are still talking about human trafficking and how exactly it has impacted the society communally and generally affected the society. And of course, a report was released, a 2022 report was released by the Ministry of Internal Affairs that is showing the numbers. How many victims did we have in 2022? How many victims should we expect in 2023? Are they going to go down by number and stuff like that? And I have Mr. Basalirwa in studio, and we are talking about these issues. Yesterday you were at the police headquarters. Yes. And we saw you giving some information, and I'd like to just re-echo it for some of our viewers who were not at police yesterday. And maybe let's start from the gender. The human traffickers or the human trafficking victims, are they more male or more female?
Thank you, Carol. Most of the victims are female. And relating to our report, we realized that we actually categorized adult female and adult male. The report shows a total number of victims. You know, we differentiated the number of cases reported and the number of victims, those that have interacted in the spheres of being trafficked or have successfully been trafficked. The report indicates a total of 2,099 victims, of which they are adult females, totaling to 762, and the juvenile females totaling to 739. More as compared to the male victims, whose totals are 371 for adult male and 227 for juvenile male victims. So you realize that the people at more risk are the women, the girls, and the children, as opposed to the men. Actually, you find most of the perpetrators are male. However, there are also female perpetrators. Okay. Yes.
Maybe let me start with the question I wanted to end with, and that's with labor migration. Since there are more females, why exactly are Ugandans still going to these UAE countries to look for jobs, clearly knowing that it's first of all dangerous and not sustainable in most cases, and some of these cases have turned out to be human trafficking cases?
Carol, thank you for that question. Most of our people actually think it's dangerous to go to the Middle East. No, Carol, it's not the case. We have to differentiate between labor migration and human trafficking. Okay. That's where most of our people mix it. People migrate for work. You've had, or you have friends maybe, who have left the country, gone to other countries, not even necessarily the Middle East. Yeah. Kubacheyo. And it's fine.
Working out fine.
It's the same principle of labor migration. What is different about this is what happens in that country and what the people go through there. But for Ugandans to go to work in the Middle East, it's actually a good thing. That's an opportunity for work. The only difference is perpetrators take advantage of those large numbers. They take advantage of that because there is need for work the other side. They also fix in those that they are taking under trafficking umbrella, and they exploit them. However, for people to migrate from the country to go and work, it's actually a plus. Government goes out there, looks for these opportunities for Ugandans, signs labor agreements. For instance, the one we have now with Saudi Arabia, very good for our people to have work. You know, there's a high rate of unemployment. So many graduates are looking for jobs here and there. So getting them those opportunities is a plus. However, the perpetuator doesn't care. They will just take advantage of the moment and traffic people, those that fall victim. That's why we call upon Ugandans. The Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development has a portal and has processes for Ugandans to legally exit the country if they are going to work abroad. And it's always good for Ugandans to go through this process. Register with the Ministry of Gender, get known, your destination, who is going to employ you, all these details, because you must sign a contract to where you're going. Once government knows, or the authorities know where you are, even the same information can be circulated at the different embassies under Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It is for your own safety. In case the people that took you want to take advantage and exploit you, then at least government has where to start from to look for you, to protect you, to safeguard you by going to the respective country where you are, the authorities there or the government, and telling them, you know what, we have this number of Ugandans by these names in these locations. Can we rescue them? They are under threat. Otherwise, when Ugandans just leave the country, especially to the Middle East, and they're busy hiding as they go, they don't even tell anyone, their parents or friends, you get in trouble and no one knows how to start to help you, which is dangerous out there.
So why is it a continued problem then? Are people using other routes to, migrate to
Yes,
other
Carol.
countries?
People, the country is open. You can use any border to exit the country, as long as it's your convenience to exit. So there is no limitation for Ugandans to leave the country. But government has gone ahead to put processes for categories of migrant workers to the Middle East, especially, to make sure they are safe, to make sure they are protected, their interests are protected. We are not yet going to see an end to labor migration. In fact, it should grow. People need to go out there, gain experience, bring back the expertise, and the economy has to change. If you're just within your compound and house, you cannot know how best some other things can be done. But if you go out there, pick a leaf or two, bring it back here, it changes. It has an impact on the economy.
So how can we help these people who are out there in the UAE suffering, the ones we see on social media sending videos, crying every now and then, my boss is treating me like this, and stuff like that? How can we help those ones?
One of the major ways, Carol, the coordination office at the Ministry of Internal Affairs receives reports, receives complaints, and acts upon them. Like I said, we have so many stakeholders, so many service providers that we refer these cases to. Some of our service providers have international partners. They have sister agencies in the Middle East that can come to the rescue of our Ugandans, especially those girls. So if anyone is in that form of trouble, please make sure you report, or if it's your brother or sister that you're in touch with, or your parents, let them know the kind of trouble you're in. Let them go to the nearest authorities, even to police. Police will forward the case respectively. Even to the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Look for the Human Trafficking Office. Those who are abroad already can also go to or send information to the nearest embassy. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is there. They will attend to you ably.
Okay.
And they will coordinate with the respective stakeholders to
All right.
rescue you. Yes, Carol.
Well, government enacted new employment regulations to increase the ethical recruitment of Ugandan migrant workers. Government implemented these regulations by investigating and suspending some of these recruitment companies engaging in fraudulent exploitations and, recruitment activities. Do you support government on that? Do you support government on the fact that they are cutting out some companies? And is it true that some other companies actually pay bribes to stay in operation, yet they are not supposed to?
Of course, Carol, I am working for government.
I know.
Definitely, I support government in all the efforts intended for the good of Ugandans. Speaking to companies that engage in dubious activities, that is totally an individual or company direction they choose to take. As long as it is illegal, you will be put to book.
Okay.
Yeah, there is no exception. I cannot support a company that is doing that, that is trafficking people. Ministry of Gender is the major monitor or controller of most of these companies because it licenses them and name it. It goes ahead to monitor their activities. Once it finds out that company X is engaged in human trafficking or any other dubious activities, your license will be cancelled immediately. You will be scrapped off the list of companies that recruit for migrant labor, and you pay fines. Recently, we've seen cases coming through. So there is no exception. Like I said, this is for Ugandans. All the efforts are for Ugandans. Any form of regulations or policies are designed to protect the Ugandans, those that are migrating to work or even those that are within the country.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's end with the crime rate. What is the crime rate currently, and how have the different regions performed in police?
Thank you, Carl. Speaking of the different police regions, yes, the different police regions performed differently, but we had the highest numbers reported cases to CID headquarters, which is a good thing. This helps us to also know how much effort to inject in particular areas. We realize that Kampala at large, our city, has the highest numbers that were reported under investigations. Meaning there are so many victims around. There are so many victims that are brought from different parts of the country to the cities and urban centers. Greater Masaka, CID headquarters, had 167 cases. Greater Masaka, 120. There's quite a list there. But there are also some police regions that registered zeros for the year 2022. I think mainly because some of them might not know how to report on these cases. And these are some of the awareness campaigns and trainings and capacity building that we are conducting the whole of this year and going forward to make sure that more staff, more police, more immigration, more prosecutors, more investigators are built in capacity to make sure that they know exactly how they have to go about this. Yes. Otherwise, I'm optimistic next year we might not register zeros only. We shall have more coming on board with more numbers because of the high levels of awareness raising.
Okay.
Yes.
Are we seeing the numbers of victims dropping in 2023 since this was a 2022 report?
Carol, to be honest, I think the numbers might go up still simply because the more people know about this, the more we expect that they will come and report cases. The more they understand this, the more they will come out, tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a colleague about what they are going through. And hopefully, more cases will be reported at police.
Any last words to our viewers?
Yes, our dear viewers, chogereko. That's all I can tell you. Don't keep quiet about this vice. Chogereko. Anything you see that is out of line, maybe your neighbors have activities they conduct that are not normal. Maybe you realize they usually do their things at night. Many people coming in, some people leaving. Please, to the nearest police, report Chogereko. And Carol,
Yes.
our relatives, our friends are one of the perpetrators, the major ones. The people we know are the ones that are busy selling of trafficking
There are people.
others. Yes. Thank you, Carol.
Very interesting and very chilling. In fact, that was Mr. Basalirwa Derrick Kigenyi from the Ministry of Internal Affairs as Deputy National Coordinator for Prevention and Trafficking in Persons. Human trafficking is still a vice that we need to deal with, and of course, as the media, we are doing our best to make sure that, of course, this vice comes to an end, and we see a zero human trafficking Uganda in the future. My name is Karen Norman. Thank you so much for being a part of Issues at Hand. See you tomorrow. Thank you so much for being a good audience. Please keep the conversation going on our social media platforms. That's at Church of Uganda Family TV on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on our YouTube, where we post various videos like this one. You will find it there and continue the conversation. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.